Coming up, 5 years ago, the Tory government had the statistics boffins in the Treasury carry out a rigorous and objective economic analysis of leaving the EU under different scenarios. Post-Brexit, it's now perhaps a good time to revisit that analysis and see what it had to say specifically about our current real-world scenario, a Brexit with a negotiated bilateral agreement. Keep watching. Without political interference and using realistic assumptions, the pre-Brexit HM Treasury analysis produced estimates which were in line with the findings of several external studies. Now we know the nature of the Brexit deal we've actually ended up with, we can compare it to what would have happened if we'd have stayed in the EU. Forget the current government's narrative about teething problems. The report gave long-term figures, looking ahead 15 years after Brexit. And what we see under the sort of negotiated bilateral agreement that we got is that the gross domestic product of the UK being 6.2% less than it would have been had we stayed in the EU. The analysis also established that trade and investment flows would be lower over that 15-year period. In reality, it took only really 15 days to see this begin to take effect. The analysis showed that the UK would be permanently poorer if it left the EU, as the additional costs incurred by Brexit substantially outweigh the membership payments to the EU and any benefits of leaving. It's like being a vendor at a car boot sale, and you decide you don't like the rules of that car boot sale and you refuse to pay the pitch fee, thinking that you could use that money to pay for something like, I don't know, your medical care instead. But you then suffer the consequences of not being able to access the car boot sale site to sell your merchandise. What to that harder thinking car boot sale vendor sounded like a saving turns out to be the path to economic ruin, as they desperately chase all over the country trying to find other car boot sales who are selling pitches. And in their desperate state, they have to agree to whatever rules those other car boot sales on the other side of the country want to impose on them. So how much worse off will that vendor be now they've managed to isolate themselves from their local car boot sale? Well, the central figure for the range of expected annual loss of GDP is £4,300 for each household in the UK every year at 2015 prices under exactly the type of Brexit we now have. £4,300 for each household to take back control of something we never really lost control of in the first place. £4,300 to regain some sort of imaginary pure sovereignty. Sovereignty is the natural price for any trade deal, and it's now being given away to India, Singapore, Japan, Australia and other countries all over the world, because that's how trade deals work. All agreements, bilateral or multilateral, involve a surrender of sovereignty as you compromise with another country on sovereign rules and regulations. Pure sovereignty would mean absolute control over your borders, unfettered freedom to abuse your own population, and the ability to threaten other populations. Probably the closest we have to that on this planet is North Korea, but even they make some sovereignty concessions to China on trade. The Brexiteer ideal then sounds very much like North Korea. Oh, and by the way, membership of NATO and the United Nations also impacts on our sovereignty. And membership of those highly bureaucratic bodies doesn't seem to stir the emotions for some reason. But back to the HM Treasury analysis. The negative impact on tax receipts significantly outweighs the savings in financial contributions to the EU. I think we all know that. The result, though, is higher government borrowing and debt, large tax rises, or major cuts in public spending. And under the Tories, you can bet those large tax rises will disproportionately affect the less well off. Even in 15 years' time, tax receipts will be £20 billion a year lower in 2015 prices, which is the equivalent of 8p on the basic rate of income tax. What makes the situation even worse than it might appear, and what wasn't widely reported in Britain, is that when Brexit was first floated in Brussels, it did lead to a mini panic within the EU, and the UK actually became the main driver for a while for an ambitious agenda of economic reform within the EU. But even without the UK driving it, an EU reform programme is still moving forward and will remove remaining barriers to trade in services, energy and digital commerce. We've recently seen completion of major trade deals between the EU and the rest of the world. You know, the ones Liz Truss is busily trying to copy and paste, but having to accept far worse terms, partly because of the relative size of the UK, and partly because, well, you know, she's pretty useless. The economic benefits of these reforms could have increased UK GDP by a further £2,800 per annum for every household in the UK had we remained in the EU. During our membership of the EU, trade as a share of UK national income rose to consistently over 60%, compared to less than 30% in the years before membership. No prizes for guessing that it's now in long-term decline back to those pre-EU levels. The HM Treasury analysis also found that almost 3/4 of foreign investors cited access to the European single market as a reason for their investment in the UK. The single market creates, of course, a level playing field by reducing non-tariff barriers like regulations and standards, and this is what made the UK such an attractive place to invest. Now that we've left the single market, this is no longer the case, and non-tariff barriers are back. What with the pandemic and millions of workers in the UK still being furloughed, the real impact of Brexit on unemployment has also yet to be seen. The HM Treasury analysis pointed out that 3.3 million jobs are linked directly to exports from the UK to other EU countries. Time will tell just how many of these jobs are lost forever. And one final thought today. The findings of HM Treasury's objective analysis, which were fully in line with those from corporations and academia, showed that a bilateral Brexit deal, similar to what we have now, will lead in the long term to a UK economy that is 6.2% smaller, UK annual tax receipts taking a £36 billion hit, and British families being £4,300 a year worse off at 2015 prices.
Welcome to the Brexit, sir. I'm sorry.
Oh my God.